じゃあ、こんばんは、こんにちはみんな。サムです。髪変わりました。動画で髪が変わりますね。でも、今日のトピックはこれじゃなくて、今日は私の言語の学び方が教えてあげたいんです。と思います。なんでこんなトピックは、なんで私がエキスパートじゃないんですけど、なんでこういうお話がしますかと、ぜひ考えていますけど、子供頃も言語を勉強やってみましたけど、この時はできなかった。全然できなかった。なんてドイツ語を学びたんだ。でもね、この時は単語だけで学んで、全然覚えてないね。でも今、ちょっとだけ日本語が話せますと、ペラペラじゃないんですけど、よくわかります。今、ちょっと単語は本当に難しいんですね、漢字とか。これを頑張っていますけど、他人のことについて話します。では、始めましょう。Okay, I'm gonna talk in English because I think I'm definitely gonna get the explanation wrong if I continue in Japanese. Also, the subtitles take me a lot of time, so we're just gonna start off with it. So, I would like to describe my language learning process in 4 phases. Obviously, just a disclaimer, you should be doing, like when you're starting off a language, maybe all of the 4 phases overlap or some phases overlap with each other at some point. But when you're proceeding in terms of prioritization, I think having these in your mind really help you and get you on a fast track to getting to your goal, which is basically we'll just talk about that, right? I think just before starting off with all the phases, what I'd like to preface with, and the most important thing to keep in mind, is your why. Your why will get you along this whole journey. All your phases will be molded around what your why is. So I think just figuring that out, sitting down before you start and figuring out what's your goal, why do you want to learn this, where are you going to use it, and who are you going to use it with. These few questions, try to figure it out, and then you'll be ready to start. So let's take examples, right? Maybe you're still confused, and here are the reasons that I've heard a lot of people try to learn languages. For starting off with my main language, and this reason propels me through every language that I'm trying to learn right now. So it's that I essentially want to be able to consume media in that language. So that's also my criteria for filtering which languages I learn, right? Their media and entertainment industry have to be entertaining and they have to be captivating so that I can get that comprehensible input. We'll get to that later, but yeah. So that's one reason, and then the second reason is I really want to be able to talk to different people in that language, get new perspectives, explore new cultures, because when you learn a language, it's like you're opening up a new personality and you're basically unlocking new versions of yourself. You're leveling up. So that's another reason. A few other reasons could be maybe lifestyle or career related, like you want to get a job in that your target language country, and you want to study in your target language country, and what else, maybe you want to find love in your target language country. There are several cases like that. So I think once you figure out that, then you're ready. The key thing after figuring out your why, so we're down to your why. The second is being intentional with each of these phases. So now that we know that we have to be intentional and that we have to be thorough with what our goal is, we can jump right into the phases. So starting off, phase 1, which is the sounds. Yes, okay, so the reason why you're starting off with that is 2 reasons. It's to, number 1, build that stepping stone to comprehension. When you need to create output, when, for example, say you're writing something, you need to read at least 5 times the amount to gather that data, build something comprehensible, understandable, and information out of that raw data, and then present it to the world. That's similarly how languages operate. You're taking in a bunch of different sounds, you're basically processing that to form certain syllables, and then your words and hence sentences, and then bring it out in the form of information to the person who's listening. So the fact is that every language has either minor or major differences in terms of the phonetics that they use. For example, there are several, I think, African languages that use a lot of clicking of the tongue, something you do not hear at all in English or Hindi for that matter. And like Bengali, for example, you would hear it, you would perceive it as a very round language. Russian, you perceive it as a very angry language because of the phonetics that are involved. Japanese, you have pitch accent, which is basically understanding whether it goes after a particular syllable you go down, up, or stay in the same tone, same pitch, and then you have intonation and the tones that are there in Chinese and Cantonese, which change the meaning of the word entirely. So if in order to obtain that data into your brain, obtain those sounds, you need to first get used to the idea of listening to it. You need to kind of just take in a lot of get used to hearing it, get used to people talking in it, because then only you'll be able to sort through the clutter. You'll be able to cut the clutter. Yes. Okay. But yes, so and how do you do that is the question. So I started off by listening to music. I listen to a lot of J-pop, I listen to a lot of J-rock, listen to podcasts. You can listen to influencers in Japan just talking about their daily lives, and shows or movies. Again, coming to the intention part of it, it's very important to filter these shows, movies, podcasts that you're listening to depending on what you want to do with the language. I mean, in most cases it would be starting off with daily life language or simple words, but again, the type of personalities that you want to adopt, or like the type of personalities that you want to talk to using this language, I think it would make sense to watch their videos and listen to their audios. For example, if you want to be in a formal setting, it would help to start off by watching videos of newscasters. Even though you don't understand a thing, you at least understand the cadence of their voice and how they're speaking. And if you want to learn a lot of anime type of language, like Kora, Kono Yatsuga, and then you watch a lot of Naruto. But yes, I think YouTube, podcasts on Spotify, and music really helps you get used to it. Yes. On to phase 2. Can you see it? Betcha. Yes. So this is the alphabet phase. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory why you should learn the alphabet, because a lot of people try to learn Japanese by learning Romaji, but you know what? If you really want to learn a language, you will never get the true essence of it unless you learn the alphabet of it, because sure, it would convey the overall meaning, but you won't be able to enjoy it as much, I think. So yeah, for how you can do it, now that you have your different phonetics and sounds in your brain, you recognize the peculiar ones that stand out from your native language, and you then just learn the alphabet corresponding to them. And I did that just by writing, and in the case of Japanese, trying to use mnemonics and assigning pictorial representation to the languages. For example, the katakana for na really looks like a knife, so just finding good YouTube recommendations there. There's a really good one for Korean over here, and there's a really good one for Japanese over here. So yeah, and as in when you are learning, pronounce every word as in when you're writing them, pronounce every word as in when you are reading them. And one good thing would be to, while you're listening to the sounds, without even understanding, try to just shadow them, repeat after what they're saying. So yeah, I think that's the second phase. On to number 3. Have you seen that reel where Oh my god, I love this topic. That's me with phase 3, which is gram time. Can you see it? That is so. It's grammar time, everyone, and it's time to party because we're gonna learn sentence structures. I think grammar is. I have so much fun learning it, but I think grammar is the most important part of any language. And if you have a good app, if you have good resources to learn them from, it is just mind opening. The reason why is because obviously you can learn phrases when you start off a language. You learn phrases for hello, like tajahao in Chinese, konnichiwa, and everything. But you're basically just learning random sounds. What grammar does, what it does is it creates a map. It gives you the tool to navigate through the language. Now that if you know grammar, if you know the rules of the language, no matter what word is thrown at you, you'll be able to put it in the right place. You'll be able to make sense of it even though it's the first time you're listening to it or reading it. And that's crazy. And sure, that mainly works for logical languages, but again, most languages are logical, except for the cases of gendered nouns, which is for German and even French. So that's difficult, and that comes through practice. But things like sentence structure, particles, conjunction tenses, level of respect, that's a very cultural thing. But even like adverbs, adjectives, verbs, injections basically mean like yaar, omo, are, so desu, and those are basically like words that are exclamatory or just expressing an emotion, right? So these are mostly, I think, constant in terms of existing throughout a language. Complexities may vary, but yeah, I think it just gives you the tools. It unlocks everything. And how I learned grammar for Japanese was through this app called Obenkyo, and also through Taikim's Guide to Japanese. So that has practically everything that you need to learn about grammar. If you learn all of that, you're pretty much set. If you read all of that. And I don't have any particular way for learning grammar. I just really found it interesting, and because of that I remembered all of it. So, but one thing I would say is that now is the time when you learn grammar to combine it with phase 1 and phase 2. So now that you are constantly listening to stuff, you've learned the alphabet, whatever content that you are coming across in these two phases, try to apply the rules of grammar. And I would say that try to understand why it is like that. Like, is that the rule that you read about? Learn it and notice it and reuse it and employ it in whatever words you come across. If you come across a random verb, try to conjugate it in all the ways that you know. Try to build your own sentences using the rules of grammar, and it'll be fun. Maybe you can try writing a diary as well while doing this. Yes. Okay, this is the boss level to me, but not at the end, but this is the boss level because I'm struggling with this right now. So coming to phase 4, which is boss level, vocab. So I want to talk about why it's important. You know that already. You need vocab to basically fill in the gaps and translate your thoughts into words through the syllables that you have learned and the grammar rules that you have learned. And let's get those thoughts into information and into action. So talking about how I'm basically learning words, so I mainly use tools like Anki. I use the Jisho dictionary to look up random words that I need to. Then I am currently learning kanji. Obviously this is a generic one. Maybe I'll make a video about how I'm learning kanji in the next one. But I'm mainly using Anki and other media sources to basically note down and jot down the words that I do not know. Yes, the reason why I use Anki is basically for a beginner level at least you need to learn 1000 to 2000 words, and because writing down really does not help me. I will write down and then I will forget it the next day. That is why you need tools like spaced repetition, active recall, mnemonics, and pictorial representation in languages like iconographic languages like Chinese and Japanese. So These 4 tools really help me. You might have heard it on any other language learning video or productivity video. There's a lot of Anki decks available on Reddit, so definitely check that out. Okay. The last 2 phases I have not made the placard for that, but everything that we've talked until now has been about input. So now we're going to shift gears to output, because we've gotten a lot of information in our head, and now a lot of raw data in our head. Now we've gotten a lot of raw data. We have the tools, we have the things that will fit in between, and we know what it's going to sound like. So now is the time to action that out. And how to do that is 2 ways. Number 1, speaking, and number 2, reading and writing. The reason why output is very important is so that you can make your learned language your own. Because after a point, you do learn the rules and you do learn the culture, but to engage with it truly, you do need to put your thoughts and to become one with the language. I think it sounds corny, but it's yeah, you do become one with the language, I feel, and you are able to interact with people. So how I practice my speaking is, number 1, I use apps like HelloTalk and italki if you want personal tutoring especially, but HelloTalk if you want to join voice rooms with native speakers, practice your speaking skills, maybe learn a thing or 2 from them in their natural state. And the second one that I use is shadowing. I mentioned it before, but whatever media I'm consuming, music, podcasts, or YouTube or Netflix shows, I just, as and when the video is going, I try to voice whatever the person is saying. So I'll just repeat after them, and that time I'll just pause and I'll try to constantly repeat until I sound like that person. This is useful for 2 things. Number 1, sounding more like a native, and number 2, trying to identify how the conversation or how the language basically flows. And the first part as well is very dependent on what type of person you want to interact with and what your goal is for the language, right? So for example, if I want to become a newscaster in Japan, I would be watching a lot of news in Japanese and then be shadowing their content. But for example, if I just want to become, say, a science lecturer, then I would be watching a lot of science lectures in Japanese and then shadowing them. Similarly, that goes for daily life conversations. The idea is to absorb and immediately output whatever you are absorbing. And then the third, which is talking to myself, which is what I'm doing right now. But basically invent scenarios and just voice it out loud if you're a shy person, and talk about your day maybe, and whatever words you learn throughout the day, try to use them when you're maybe talking to yourself, because that's a great tool to just voice out your opinions. It's a good way to let go as well, and you're practicing your language simultaneously. And the last one is reading and writing. What I do for writing especially, I try to maintain a daily diary, a nikki, Nihongo no nikki, and I try to journal whatever happened in the day. And this can be dependent on your use case as well. You try to use words and you try to jot down stuff in terms of the goal that you're targeting. So write news reports if you want to be a newscaster. And then you can change your phone settings to your target language, but I didn't really like the idea because that becomes too advanced in my opinion, and you don't want to go too advanced that it stops you from learning the basic stuff or incrementing. It should be challenging enough that maybe 30% of what you are doing, what you are consuming, is something you don't know, but it should not go beyond 50% in my opinion. So yeah. And then I just read blog posts online in Japanese or books. Currently reading Hisoyaka no Kessho, which is The Memory Police by Ogawa Yoko. So yes, and then you can read news as well. I use Easy Japanese and I use Satori Reader, and I'm reading a lot of mangas lately because they're a good visual tool to understand what's going on. So even if you don't understand the word completely, you might get a hint from the characters' extravagant reactions. But yes, those were all the phases that I had. Again, ending this with, nothing is sequential. Things can overlap, things can get muddled up, but this can be your way of prioritizing things. And that's the beauty of language learning. It's just every day is a new experiment. Who knows what new content you'll find, who knows what new ideas you'll find, and that's just fascinating. So yes, we'll keep you updated on my boss level challenge. But I hope this helped anyone who's trying to learn languages. Do comment down below if you want videos on anything else.